Hello and welcome to another episode of Casting Views, the podcast that takes a topic each week and, as the name suggests, cast views. This week I'm recording again on one of the hottest days of the year, and what better to talk about a subject of grown adults grappling, sweating and grappling, there's an image already, than the one and only Joey from a whole ton now of podcasts, right? But predominantly Game
all
Club
under
Pod.
the Game Club Pod. Just say Game Club Pod, is easier. I think I'm glad, Dan, that I came in my wrestling attire of tiny trunks and nothing else. And I'm glad that you did the same.
Well, I was going to say, I wasn't expecting you to do that, so now I feel overdressed. How are you, my friend? How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm actually recording this live from the third circle of hell. It's so hot. But, we enjoy doing it. It's lovely to see your face. So if anyone I was going to be here is sweating with, I'm glad it's you.
I am. So, of course, well, you know more than anyone, but obviously I've started another podcast, Gaming Views, and I was doing that with a friend of mine, Dan, also Dan. And I said to him the other night before we started recording, I said, welcome to the life of a podcaster recording on like 29-degree heat in a little room with a screen and shutting everything for the sound. And we're now doing YouTube, right? So the video's coming out tomorrow. Well, Tuesday. You'll have seen it last week now. But you can see by the end, I'm just literally, I'm getting redder and redder as the video's going on, and I'm wiping the sweat.
That's me on a normal day. It's just a bit more today.
How is the Game Club Pod going? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Game Club Pod is good. We are doing some really exciting things with advanced copies of games and review copies of games. You might have seen if you subscribe to us, the DLC series has predominantly been reviews for copies of games that we've been given by developers, which is really exciting. It's something I really wanted to do when we started the podcast, but it's taken a few years to get there. But it's really fun. It's really cool to see developers' very early iterations of their games, and we've had feedback from developers on our feedback on their games, and it's just good to have that conversation with people in the gaming industry, which I think there was a point with Game Club Pod where we kind of deviated quite far away from gaming. And we still have Two Blokes from Blighty. We still have BAP, which there's a new one out today at time of recording, and I think I've said to you before, I care very little for anime and cartoons for adults, but the Bat Boys, I'm so pleased that they are doing what they're doing, because Pete and Sky are just wonderful. Not that Alex and Tim aren't. They're all right as well, but I speak to them quite a lot and they know how I feel about them. We're also streaming every Thursday on Twitch at minimum. We sometimes do more than that, but that's fun. Game Club Pod is really good. It's just really busy.
You are extremely busy, and I know, I keep saying to you, I really do love your feed. You, Alex, and Tim, especially with some of the newer things you're doing, like Thanks, I Hate It, and cutscenes, really finding your groove with that as well, and really good.
We found that we were doing a video game every 2 weeks, and if you want to get into a game, 2 weeks often isn't enough time to do it, especially when you're trying to do it in bulk and front load the episodes. So we would record 2 or 3 episodes. That would be 6 weeks worth of game content. And then we were going, there's such a gap between mainline episodes. And then we realized we're calling it mainline when we have all these other things that come out. So we split our feed into the Game Club Pod, which is what we used to call our mainline episodes. So like a review of a book club style of a game. Then we have Thanks, I Hate It, where we try and take one of the tropes that one of the hosts doesn't like in games or films. So, for example, Tim and Alex both don't like jump scares, so I made them watch It Part 1 and 2 recently. And then Cutscenes is all about video game movies, and I'm trying to think of the last good one we had. Maybe the first one, the Bob Hoskins Mario movie, which is so bad it's good. And it gives it a really nice rhythm, like you know what's coming out, and I feel like that continuity is always good. And then you throw in Two Blokes from Blighty there, which is a bit like chucking a brick in a washing machine. There's no continuity or consistency there. It's just a bit like raw energy put onto a podcast, which I really enjoy. And then Dan, it's this. I don't know if you ever date your episodes. It's the 16th of June today. I had a thought. I think we're going to start recording Podmas soon.
That's incredible as well. Yeah. I was actually talking to the other Dan about Podmas. I was saying, yeah, I can't wait for this year's one. Yeah.
Are you not going to do it?
No, I think we're going to do some Christmassy episodes.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't think we're going to do a
think you
Podmas
should.
yet.
I'm sure between now and December, I'll manage to rope you and Dan into some element of Podmas. So if you want to hear gaming views and casting views and Game Club Pod all in one place, I'm sure there will be an episode of Podmas for you, which I should explain what Podmas is for anyone. I've been here a lot. For a while, it felt like I was a second host, Dan. Podmas started off as the 12 pods of Christmas, so we released an episode every other day in December right until Christmas Day. Then we thought, why are we only doing 12? Let's do 24 right up to Christmas Day. And then we did that, and we thought, why are we only doing 24? Let's do 30 and do every day other than Christmas Day. So our plan now is to go one step further and do a full 31 podcast episode every single day in December.
And so you should,
which will be fun. But just to set expectations, they're not all like reviews. Some of them are serious, some of them are stupid. So we do a quiz for one of them. We do like a blind tier list episode is a bit of a favourite. We did a choose your own adventure last time. We do a D&D couple of episodes, which Dan appeared on last year. It's good fun. It's really good fun, and it's like it's where the variety side of me gets to flex a little bit, rather than just being stuck to our tasks, which I love doing. But every now and then I listen to other podcasts and I think, that's a great idea I could rip off.
Well, no, but I get it. And that's why, I love doing on here. I love doing the mind wipe and the dinner party episodes, etc. Or even getting you like, when I had you and the rest of your gang on for the origin of phrases, because I love getting podcasters, especially ones who are specifically in a niche, like Justin at the movie wise, constantly doing movies, yourself predominantly in games, to do something different and outside of the normal thing. It's great to kind of see how the mind works outside of the usual. And
just as when does this episode go live, Dan?
This should go this Sunday. So what's that? The 22nd.
Wow. If you've not listened to Dan H's Mind Wipe, go back a week and listen to it. It's really, really good. I'm really enjoying it. I'm about 2/3 of the way through at time of speaking. So
thank you for that. And
it's good.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to that because I've known him for so long, and I think I said on the episode, knowing him the way I do, I couldn't wait to find out what he was gonna. I
really liked when he was picking things, and I think I've listened to every single Mind Wipe you've done, but I feel like with the one with Dan, you just picked up, and you seem to know a lot more about the subjects he was talking about rather than being introduced to new things, and I feel like. I mean, I like you and Dan as a duo. I think that you're great together. But I feel like the way you bounce off each other really shows like a good co-host relationship and what you need for a really good podcast. So yeah, go and listen to that if you haven't already.
No, I appreciate that. Yep, gaming views, and check us out on YouTube because I've gone on video. Which after almost 4 years of this, I'm showing my face.
This isn't going on YouTube, is it, Dan? Because
no,
it's very hot.
Yeah, especially when you've just ripped your shirt off Hulk Hogan style.
Well, yeah, the rest came with it. That's why it can't go on YouTube.
Yeah, and make sure, obviously, you go subscribe to the Game Club pod feed to get basically so much content every week and various content. It's honestly, it's one of my favourite because I love you guys. So.
Well, it's easy to put out loads of content that's varied when you have technically 5 hosts. It helps.
Oh, and what I will say before we get on, so as long as you're still all right for it, you'll be back next week, won't you?
I will.
Because I've got various.
To it now.
Yeah. Well, basically, that was more just making sure everyone knew that.
Contractual agreement.
Yeah. So I've got a very special episode next week. It's episode 200. Joey has agreed to step in and help out, and probably a bit of news about sort of the future of that. So make sure you bookmark that next week to hear Joey again.
I mean, let's really be real here. Bookmark it for next week. One, because it's casting views and you should anyway. But 2, because of Dan and his show and the monumental achievement that is 200 episodes.
Bless you. Thank you. Actually, I'm bookmarking it because I don't know what it is because I've told you to come do all the work for me. So, and I'm not joking.
I'm all right with that.
Right. This is something I've been saying to you since wrestling came onto Netflix back in January, I was saying to you, I felt like I wanted to do a series on wrestling. I'm not the biggest expert. I used to love watching it. Then we'll talk about it. I hadn't seen it for many, many years. Then wrestling's come back on and I'm like, I've regressed 20, 25 years. And I wanted to do like a wrestling sub-series. I haven't got around to doing it. You mocked up a brilliant picture for me. Well, you said it's not for me, it's for my wife, but you've got a brilliant picture of my head on a Stone Cold Steve Austin, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which weirdly, she's put up in a frame, but not, there's no pictures of me. But yeah, and then you kind of put something to me, which we'll come on to after. But firstly, what's your history with wrestling? And I don't necessarily mean you actually being involved, unless you were, which I'm more than happy to hear.
I wasn't. I used to work with someone who, I'm not going to say where I work for obvious reasons, but I used to work with someone who we found out after about a year was a heel in a independent wrestling promotion. And he used to go on as the manager and just get beaten up every single night after work, which was good. That wasn't me. Promise, honestly, not me. So I used to really love wrestling. And I can tell you the first ever match I watched when it was aired was just after Eddie Guerrero lost his title to John Bradshaw Layfield. And he was having a steel cage match as the rematch to potentially get it back. And he did a frog splash off the top of the cage onto Kurt Angle. And I remember watching it and thinking, this is unreal. This is unlike anything I've ever watched. The crowd going mad, the people having a blatant disregard for their safety and well-being. And then Kurt Angle comes in as a masked man. I have no idea who these people really are at this point. And he screws over Eddie. But I just, as well as the big sweaty blokes beating each other up, I just remember thinking, this is like a soap opera for people who want to watch people beat each other up. And I knew of a lot of the people during the Attitude Era. I know that was when it got really big. I was like the back end of primary school when the Attitude Era was on. So when we were in the playground, people were going mad for it. So we used to just beat each other up in the playground going like, oh, I'm The Rock and I'm Steve Austin. I'd never watched it, but I used to tell people that I had because I thought it was cool. But I really got into it a few years after that. So the kind of real raw side of it, all the blood and the guts and the kind of intentional misogyny and all of that stuff had died down quite a lot by the time I got into it. And then Tim, my co-host, and I say little brother, I can't say little brother, he's about half a foot taller than me. My younger sibling, Tim and I went to see WWE. It was WWE at the time. That's kind of dating it. It was not long after the change from WWF to WWE. We went to see it in Birmingham, and we watched a Fatal 4-Way, which was John Cena, The Undertaker, Kurt Angle, and The Big Show.
Wow, okay.
And it was an actual episode of SmackDown. So like they pulled out all the stops for it, and I just was absolutely blown away by the atmosphere. And then I think I was really into it for about a year, maybe a little bit longer. But I kind of, when the Royal Rumble's on, I used to try and watch the Royal Rumble because I just thought it was really good fun, really stupid fun. And I like seeing who they brought back, what the gimmick was this year. And Wrestlemania, I used to watch it sometimes. I had about 19 different emails, so I could keep getting the free subscription for a month for the WWE. What was it called at the
Network.
time? The Network.
Yeah.
And then when they brought it to Netflix, it's like, well, I have Netflix. This is interesting. It's fresh, and people are talking about it. Why would you not want to follow up on it? Now, I know that you now watch it a fair amount now it's on Netflix, and you're going and doing back catalogs, which I think is an incredible feat. I will watch the pay-per-views, but I think it's just missing something at the moment. I feel like they're missing that drama and the story element. I feel like the wrestling itself is technically much, much better. The kind of stuff that's over the top is more over the top, but the thing that they're missing to me is the characters. So I think when they get that back in, I might get pulled back into it a bit more. But until they do that, I'm just going to stick to the headline stuff. So John Cena and Cody Rhodes, I think, is a really interesting one. I can't talk too much about the recent one because I don't want to do spoilers, but the latest pay-per-view headline with John Cena, Cody Rhodes, the ending to that I think was great, was really, really good. That's an example of a really good character development. And I'm loving John Cena's heel turn.
I think he's loving it. Yeah.
And we'll talk about that in a little bit with what we're going to talk about later. But I feel like at the moment they are finding their feet on a new network, and I think it will be really good, but it needs to get good before it gets stale.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of where I am with wrestling.
Yeah, it's funny, very similar thing right back to what you said is I worked at a place where I subsequently found out that a guy there worked in an independent wrestling thing, and I'm sure he was like the evil manager as well. So I'm wondering, where did you work? But also there was this woman that worked there, really. When I say small, I mean in terms of size, she's very petite, very quiet, very meek. Turned out she was like a star wrestler on this circuit as well. So, but yeah, I was probably very similar. I was school age. I think I was looking it up earlier because there are so many eras, isn't there? So I think I started watching it at the end of what they called the golden era. So early 90s. So basically Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, and the Ultimate Warrior. I remember being obsessed with the Ultimate Warrior as a kid. So much I remember having a Commodore Amiga and buying a WWF game. You just had 3 wrestlers, I think. It was Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior, and I think Brutus Barber Beat. No, British Bulldog.
The fact that you didn't know off the top of your head, but you knew the Ultimate Warrior was in there, said it all.
Yeah, just seeing his weird digitized run out and, rope shake was incredible. I think I then watched it pretty much to 2000s, early 2000s, because I moved out, 2001. Didn't have Sky then, which is where it was predominantly on. So I think I fell out of it around the mid 2000s. Yeah, I mean that was kind of like my era, like getting those wrestling games with, is it Here Comes the Pain?
Here Comes the Pain, yeah.
With the Rock, that had the Rock on it, didn't it?
Yeah, there was just Bring It was the one with the Rock. Here Comes the Pain, I think, had Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, Brock Lesnar. And those early WWE games, I remember, were brilliant. Loved them.
It's funny you say when you fell out of it because you didn't have Sky. So we did have Sky. We were very lucky to have Sky, and we had one of them that you could record it. So I used to record it, and I think I must have got into it when you were getting out of it.
Sounds about right.
When they brought it, we would record it live and then watch it the next day.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. It sounds about right. And I'd been to see a fair few things. So I saw early on many years ago with my nephew, we went to when a local one came to our town. Bearing in mind that, our town isn't like, it's not a Manchester or a Birmingham or anything like that. And so I remember they advertising Jake the Snake there. So that was like, oh my God, that's my childhood memory right there. And this was, I think, pre his total rehabilitation. So it was quite sad to see that.
Yeah. Have you ever watched I think it's called Beyond the Mat is the documentary. And they don't talk about Jake the Snake there, but they go really in depth in a lot of the wrestlers, and a lot of them are really quite sad.
Yeah. Well, I think there actually is a documentary on, I think, because is it Diamond Dallas Page who's doing like I think it's him who does like a rehab for wrestlers.
No, I don't know. No,
and I think there is a documentary called The Rehabilitation of Jake Snake, and it is an incredible story to watch. But the thing that stuck out about that one was there was this women's match, and there was a clear heel. So I was trying to, sort of get in the mood, and I was like booing her. And she sort of came up to me and just sort of like started shouting in my face, as the heel. And like my nephew at the time just creased up with laughter, because he was a little kid. We saw a Raw show in London. Then there was another one. Like an independent sort of event came to again next town over. That was really cool to watch. And that for me was when, and that whole debate about, it's not real. Yeah, absolutely. Everybody knows it's not real. But when you watch them, the ones who are really good at their craft, it's it's almost like it is like a dance, isn't it? It's like it's just incredible when you see them in full flow.
It is, and so there's do you remember the wrestler Maven? He might have been a bit after your time.
Yeah.
So Maven has a really good YouTube channel where he gets loads of people. Like Devon Dudley was on there quite a few times, and he gets all of these other wrestlers on there, and they actually really push back on the "it's not real" thing, because the bumps that they take are like real.
Yeah,
they say it's not. It is real, but it is scripted.
Yeah,
so.
And to want to sound like a total fanboy, but it is, and this is the thing. And we did see it. Me and my wife, when we were in Florida years ago, we saw a TNA show because they let you in for free then. Where I'm at now, it's come back on Netflix. I've watched it all. Yeah, I've been watching Wrestlemanias. So I started at 1. I think I'm on 34 now.
Okay, nice.
And that's important why I say that for something we're doing after. And I've been saying to you, haven't I, that I enjoy watching it because it's something, there's a link to kind of like my childhood. And there is, I think you said it, they probably haven't been as good as they have been for a long time in terms of their athleticism and what they're doing. But there is something missing. And it is those absolutely out of this world storylines. Now, there are some that should never see the light of day again, and I'm not saying that, but now all it is wrestler A bumps into wrestler B at the backstage. They threaten each other. They stare at each other. You know, alpha male, etc. Or again with the women, there'll be a group of them, and they'll just have a go at each other. Then they wrestle in the ring. There's no like soap opera. You said it. No soap opera storylines.
It's not as bonkers as it used to be.
And more so now, I think you've got to expect it now in this day and age, but I was hoping with the Netflix deal they wouldn't have to. But the creeping in of all the advertising now.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we just had Money in the Bank, and you pointed out to me that Money in the Bank, the ladders are now sponsored.
Yes.
And it really put me off watching it.
Well, I think the Money in the Bank case has got Cash App, an ad for Cash App on it. The tables are now Slim Jim tables.
Well, it's not got to the point where the wrestlers say, well, it did with the ladder. It's not like he's gone through the Slim Jim table, but they did. The
commentators are doing it now. Yeah,
are they? They did say he's climbing the Fireball whiskey ladder. And you just think, come on.
Well, I think the commentators now saying when somebody gets put through a table, it's snap into a Slim Jim or something like that.
And tragic.
And then you add up all the advertising on the mat, which I haven't got a problem with because, you see it in boxing, but it's just this whole, it's like, what's happened to my beautiful hobby?
But the thing is, I think that takes away from is it doesn't look like, and I know it never was because it's obviously they have to have some level of control, but before, the stuff that they used to bring to the ring, the weapons and stuff, looked like they went to a Home Depot and they just went, we'll have that and that, and now it looks all very predetermined, which it obviously is, but it's kind of really not going out the way to hide that it's predetermined now. So
and again, sorry, as you said, I don't necessarily have an issue with that as long as they put on a good show, which generally they do.
Yeah.
And it is funny to see because my wife, well, I won't say she watches it, but she has to because I'm watching it. And it is funny how you see over time. So back in like the 80s, they were just huge chunks of human, right? Then it got like in the Attitude, they were big, but a lot more defined, weren't they? Like tone. And now they are sort of, wanted to quote, normal people. They're not necessarily these mega monsters.
I mean, they're still pretty jacked. But
they're
not. Well, I think you can see now it's because Vince McMahon isn't in control of it, and Vince McMahon had a real like obsession with bodybuilders, which is why you had people like Dave Bautista, Triple H to an extent, Brock Lesnar, these people who are just, like you said, slabs of meat rather than humans. And I mean, I know that they deny it to the hills, but you can see from that steroid lawsuit that went against WWE, the body shape changed from there. But now that it's Triple H and a different team in charge of WWE, that the body shape changes again. And I think it is purely down to the person in charge and what they like to see in the ring, which I think is really interesting in itself.
Yeah, it is an evolution. And it's funny as well because I said to you, my wife, she's not necessarily sitting there watching it, but she'll be in the room and hearing it. And the other day, like she was out the room, she was in one of the bedrooms, and the Cody Rhodes theme came on, and she sang the "whoa" bit at the right time. I could hear her from the hallway because she she's going whoa, and the other, what was it? The other funny thing was like we were watching. There's a new program on Apple, John Hamm. She thought that was CM Punk at first because I've been watching so much wrestling.
That's funny. That's really good. Dan, I have to ask, of the old and the new eras, who's your favourite? If you had to choose one from history and one now.
Right, let's do. I think if I was to do history, it would either be the Ultimate Warrior, and whether he was a great wrestler or not. That's the one I remember as a kid and just being fascinated with. It would be close between him or the Macho Man. Now it's a weird one because I've only really seen him since I've got it back now, but I kind of like, and I know you do as well, but I kind of like Dom Mysterio.
Oh yeah,
but just how great. He loves the hate he kind of gets. He's embracing that.
So when I first got into wrestling, when Tim and I went to see it, Dominic Mysterio was, and it's the same kid. He's just grown up with it his whole life.
Yeah.
He was the center of a feud between Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero of who his real father is. And it's so weird because he was genuinely like probably 7 years old when we were watching it. And they were like fighting over custody of a 7-year-old, which leads into it's not as bonkers as it used to be.
Yeah.
But to now see him like in WWE as a champion and really good is really cool to see. I feel like he's grown up with the product and he's just encapsulates what's still good about it.
And it's great that he's wrestling at the same time as his father as well, like father and son. I mean, you mentioned Eddie Guerrero. He was another one. I think because he came much later. I'm going back to my childhood, but Eddie Guerrero was fantastic as well.
Yeah. Well, he's my all-time favorite.
Right. Okay.
I think because, like I said, the first ever time I watched it, I saw him do a frog splash from the top of the cage, and that kind of just sticks with you. And I just used to love the lie, cheat, and steal. I used to love the comedy element that he brought to it. But I also really like the horror characters that they had. So, I mean, Kane was an obvious one who used to come out in a bit of a wall of fire. They used to have a guy called the Boogeyman, who I don't know if you remember him. He was a weird horror character. I quite liked him, but he just used to eat worms on the top of the stage and smash the clock on his head. I didn't really get it, but he creeped me out. And then the other main horror character is one that we're going to talk about today, if you want to introduce the concept of what we're doing, and then I'll take you through the match itself.
Well, before we do, there was something I did want to ask you before we kind of went into that. So you said that Eddie Guerrero. Is there a current favourite?
If I had to choose one out, he's injured at the moment, but I really like Kevin Owens.
Yes,
I think Kevin Owens is brilliant, and it's because he's he's not like a normal bloke. He's someone who's very willingly going to be thrown off of a 15-foot table onto a ladder, but he looks like a normal bloke, and he's a bit like the reincarnation of Stone Cold crossed with Mankind, which I think is a little bit after my time and when I started it, but they were like really compelling and charismatic characters. But I've always liked the heel generally. I always like the bad guy.
They're more fun, aren't they?
More fun.
Yeah.
But Randy Orton is always another good one. I've always liked Randy Orton, but he's just a bit of a nut job. So yeah, he's good.
One other special mention for me, because he's not, so people listening, he's not, who aren't familiar, he's not a full-time wrestler, but Shane McMahon.
Yeah.
Just because he loves, and this is to go back to what you're saying, that it is real in terms of what they're doing. For not being a regular wrestler, he put himself through some crazy stuff, didn't he? And do you want to talk about the really famous one? Yeah.
Just watch King of the Ring 2002, the match with Kurt Angle. There's a spot in it where they're doing a belly-to-belly suplex through a window, and one of the ring crew that was meant to set up sugar glass messed up, basically, and they put real glass in there. In both of the windows he was meant to go through. So Kurt Angle throws him against this window, and he just bounces off and lands on the concrete on his head. And this is in that Beyond the Mat documentary, and Kurt Angle saying, he's like, totally concussed. He needs to be dragged back to the ring on an equipment trolley because they can't move him. But when he does it the first time, he's like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And he just goes, "Throw me again."
Yeah.
And he does it again, and he bounces off, and he goes, "Throw me again." And he goes through the second time, and the idea was that they threw him back the same way from backstage to the front of stage, and he does it, and he bounces off, and he's just like, "Throw me again." And he's absolutely mad, but he just wants to put on a really good show.
Yeah.
And I have a little feeling that it might be because of his quite warped relationship with his dad, who ran the company.
Yeah.
But, I think Shane McMahon was always interesting. I feel like when he was in the ring, you always knew something big was going to happen.
Yeah. My memory, and I saw it recently, is WrestleMania 31, maybe 30, but where he jumps off the top of the cell. So what's that, like 30 feet, is it, or something?
Something like that, yeah. It's
onto
high.
a table.
Have you seen the one, there was a backlash, I think it was 2003, maybe, and he climbs the set, and he goes all the way up the top, and it must be like 40 foot high, and he just dives onto someone on the tables below, and you just think, you're taking years off your life doing that if it goes wrong.
As someone who's blown his back out doing, I won't even call it gardening, who blew a disc. No, I blew a disc doing not even gardening. The line between injury and pulling the move off has got to be so fine. Yeah. But I've got one more thing to ask you before we go on to you explain what you wanted to do. If you were a wrestler, what would your name be and what would your finishing move be?
So whenever I used to play the Just Bring It and SmackDown vs. Raw, I always used to make the same character, and I don't know why. I used to think it was really cool to call him Nightshade, but that was my character at the time. If I was going to do now, I would be... I'd have to think of something to come up with GCP, wouldn't I? So I could advertise the podcast at the same time.
Yeah, there you go.
But let me think about that one, Dan. My finisher, I really like a stunner. I like stunner, the rock bottom, but if you want something big and flashy, Rob Van Dam's 5-star frog splash, like the height you get on that, and if it was me, you'd be dead. So it would be that one.
Okay, so the GCP with Rob Van Dam's.
Yeah. What about you, Dan?
I thought about this too much. So I would be, my wrestling name would be the Couch Potato.
Okay.
Right? And my finishing move would be the Snack Attack. And what that is when they put like tacks on the canvas?
Yeah.
Like the thumbnails.
Yeah.
I would open a bag of crisps, but it'd be like the proper thick ridged ones like McCoy's, because they're going to do the damage.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I would sprinkle that, and then I would power bomb them onto the McCoy's.
I like it. That's really good.
Yeah. So the Snack Attack. You see, I'm there. Right. So, Joey, what did you want us to do tonight?
So I think when you listen to anything wrestling, they talk about the show or the PPV, pay-per-view, or a specific character, but it's very rare that you hear like a focus on a single match and storyline. So I thought it'd be fun to take you through WrestleMania 36's Firefly Fun House Match. Have you heard of this? Do you know what it is?
I think I know what it is. I think I've seen a clip, but I've never seen the event itself.
Okay, great. So it's really important to know that the Firefly Fun House Match took place during lockdown and during COVID, where they couldn't have fans in the stadium. So WrestleMania 36 was a really weird one because it was performed to an empty room. And the Firefly Fun House Match was one of the very few pre-recorded matches that WWE has done. And it was between The Fiend and John Cena, who actually had a WrestleMania match, I think it was 6 years before, as Bray Wyatt versus John Cena. So when I was talking about my favourite horror characters, The Fiend is one of them. You've seen The Fiend's mask, haven't you?
Yeah,
It's like, it's a bit of a hellish...
Really is.
Thing where it's like it's a bit like Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but the skin has been stretched back. It's really quite grotesque to look at. And he used to walk around with a hanging lantern, which was an homage to Bray Wyatt, his previous character. But the lantern used to look like it was Bray Wyatt's severed head with a light in the inside. It was in an era where wrestling was trying to be really PG. I was amazed that the Fiend was allowed on their network. So the Fiend versus John Cena, and it was meant to be like a bit of a deep dive into the failures and fears of John Cena. But I'm not going to spoil too much. We're going to watch the match itself, but I am going to give you a little breakdown of who the Fiend is. We all know who John Cena is. He has been the face of WWE for like 15 years. Everyone's still talking about it because of this big heel turn, but the Fiend is someone who we won't ever see again because Bray Wyatt passed away a few years ago. So his real name is Wyndham Lawrence Rotunda, and he's wrestled under the name Husky Harris, Bray Wyatt, and The Fiend. And he debuted as The Fiend in 2019 on Raw. So he had quite a good run, and he held the Universal Championship twice, beating Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman for those titles. He came about with the idea that Bray Wyatt would still be a character within WWE. So Bray Wyatt was really inspired by Mankind and Mick Foley and Cactus Jack. There was a Royal Rumble where Mick Foley came out 3 times, if you've ever seen that. He appeared once as Dude Love, once as Cactus Jack, and once as Mankind. And he really liked that kind of dual role within WWE. So in a kind of Pee-wee's Fun House style thing, they made a thing called the Firefly Fun House. And they had all of these pre-recorded bits where it was meant to be a bit like it's addressed to kids. And they had all these regular characters. Like there was Sister Abigail, who was like meant to be Bray Wyatt's thing from his previous gimmick. There's a pig, like puppets. There's a pig. There was all of these other characters. And he used to talk about them, and they used to get darker and darker and darker as they went. So it started off quite cutesy. And then eventually they introduced the Fiend. And the Fiend was there as like the nightmare that they were all scared of. And John Cena being the beacon of light for the WWE. And having all this previous with Bray Wyatt, which I think was like semi-serious. Bray Wyatt always felt that John Cena was holding back new talent from emerging within the WWE because he had to be there. So that fueled quite a lot of the realness between John Cena and Bray Wyatt. So as I said, this match is pre-recorded, but I'll tell you more about it afterwards, Dan. I really want to know what you think about it.
Right, and you will hear what I think about it and what Joey thinks about it after this break.
Welcome to Shatsunami, a variety podcast that discusses topics from gaming and films to anime and general interests.
Previously on Chatsunami, we've analysed what makes a good horror game, conducted a retrospective on Pierce Brosnan's run as James Bond, and listened to us take deep dives into both the Sonic and Halo franchises.
Also, if you're an anime fan, then don't forget to check us out on our subseries, Chatsunani, where we dive into the world of anime. So far, we've reviewed things like Death Note, Princess Mononoke, and the hit Beyblade series.
If that's sounds like your cup of tea, then you can check us out on Spotify, iTunes, and all good podcast apps.
As always, stay safe,
stay awesome, and most importantly,
stay hydrated.
Right, so we are back, and I literally don't know what I've just seen. Do you want to set the scene for what it was?
Yeah, sure. So Firefly Fun House Match, like I said, it was a pre-recorded match. There was originally a live match prepared with a story of what was going to happen. I don't think they've said anywhere what was going to happen. But when lockdown hit and they said no audience in attendance, Bray Wyatt said, got on the phone with Vince McMahon I've come up with this idea, and it's a deep dive into the history of John Cena, and I want to expose his fears, his failures. And Vince was a bit like, oh, I'm not sure about this. And they got John on the phone, said, John Cena, we got this idea. And he said, that sounds wicked. Let's give it a go. And what you saw, Dan, was a step-by-step of all of the things that John Cena was genuinely worried about in his career in WWE, played out at WWE's headquarters in one of the warehouses where they keep all of the old stuff. So you might have seen like the classic SmackDown fist that used to be above all of the signs, the classic cages that used to be in the old style before they were like chicken wire, the Saturday night main event banners that they used to play, loads of WCW stuff. But what it was, and we'll kind of go through it in just a second, John Cena's entrance and then inevitable exit from WWE, start to finish, in a 15-minute package, played out in a semi-comedic, semi-horror way. My question for you, Dan, is did you enjoy it?
I did strangely, because I say strangely because there wasn't a match as such. There was very little to no wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was watching that, I was thinking it's quite a bold decision for them to have done, because to have this was in WrestleMania, right? So in WrestleMania, to have a 15-minute segment where there's no match, and it's an extended promo, I guess. It is like a soap opera or a mini film.
Yeah, well, this was the penultimate match of WrestleMania 36. This was done right before Drew McIntyre versus Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship. So it got really high billing. There's a few things in there, like depicting Vince McMahon as a puppet devil, and loads of stuff about. So, did you notice when Bray Wyatt was Eric Bischoff?
Yes.
And did you understand the connection there of why they went to?
I didn't get that. No.
Okay, so I'll explain it. Basically, we'll go from the start. John Cena goes to the Firefly Fun House, which I explained is a bit like Pee-wee's Playhouse, and it's just a set with a door that says, "Abandon hope, all ye who exit here." Obviously, a play on the old phrase. John Cena goes through there, and he's in a pitch black room with this Vince McMahon puppet, and he says, "Have you got the ruthless aggression? We need ruthless aggression, blah, 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 blah." And John Cena's debut onto mainline WWE was an open challenge from Kurt Angle, where he said, "What have you got to defeat me?" And the only thing John Cena said was ruthless aggression. And his character at that stage was really bland, really stale. But he had this ruthless aggression thing that Vince really wanted. They quickly realized that ruthless aggression was not enough of a character thing for John Cena. So he almost got fired because he didn't have anything else that made him stand out, which is why Bray Wyatt kept saying, "You nearly got fired."
Right.
Then we went to a very strange segment that looked like Saturday night's main event.
Yeah.
And John Cena was just pumping weights really quickly.
And I said that was really weird.
It was really weird. But whilst John Cena was starting out on WWE, he wanted to be a bodybuilder. And he blew one of his pec muscles.
Right.
And if you notice, during that segment, when he's pumping the weights, he injures himself, so he drops them and he can't move his arm, so he couldn't hit anyone, which was something that genuinely happened. So we've had a fear of being fired from the thing he was working from, because they showed all of these clips of him as a kid holding up belts, a fear of him failing as the bodybuilder because he failed in that because he got the injury and couldn't carry on.
Mm-hmm.
We then went to the Doctor of Thugonomics, where John Cena really hit it off. And that came about because he was messing about outside one of the tour buses, and Stephanie McMahon heard him and said, this is what your thing can be. And it saved his career. We had a bit of a speech, and I don't know if you picked up on it. John Cena basically delivered a John Cena rap, which isn't very good, but it was basically a verbal attack on Bray Wyatt. And he gave this speech to basically say, "You think you're clever, you're actually a bully, all you do is take." And if you listen to John Cena's turning heel speech, he takes elements of what Bray Wyatt said and puts them into his turning heel speech. So he's obviously still thinks about that kind of thing. He fails as the rap artist because he can't beat him with the words. So that's another fear of failure, because John Cena recorded a rap album.
Yes,
it was not very good.
Yeah.
But another failure of his. We then go to WCW. And Bray Wyatt playing Eric Bischoff. And the thing I really liked about this is they took the old footage and they recreated it with the choreography so that they cut it between the actual footage and the new footage. And it was Eric Bischoff introducing Hulk Hogan onto WCW, which was one of the biggest heel turns we've ever seen on WWE or WWF at the time, because he was what Bray Wyatt described as the golden goose was Hulk Hogan. And then he goes to their biggest rivals. He's got the NWO World Heavyweight Belt, which really happened. And that was Cena's fear of turning heel and not wanting to tarnish his legacy the same way that Hulk Hogan does. Now, ironically, he's sort of done that anyway because it's good for what WWE needs. But I thought it was a really, really clever piece in there. We then talk about his match 6 years ago with Bray Wyatt, where it was a really, you must have seen that in your watch throughs of WrestleManias, because it was WrestleMania 30.
Yeah.
It's a really good match, and I think it's because Wyatt and Cena bounce off each other really well, but he presents him with a chair and he's saying, "Finish me, John, finish me." You can hear it over this really loud crowd, "Finish me, John." And that's another thing where Cena didn't do it. He didn't want to turn heel. And this time you have all the voices saying, "Finish me, John, change your decision, make the right choice." And he swings the chair. Bray Wyatt disappears, so he doesn't have the chance to, what they say, right that wrong. And that's when we get him punching Bray Wyatt and all of John Cena's biggest losses flashing up on the screen.
Right, yeah.
So he's beating him up and he's letting go. Like, he's not letting go. He's seeing all of these failures all at once. And there was something about a fear that he destroyed one of the upcoming biggest groups, which was the Nexus, which I can't remember his name. The one who's on commentary now, the British guy.
Oh, Wade Barrett.
Wade Barrett came through on the Nexus, CM Punk on the Nexus, and John Cena had a feud with them and it basically ruined them.
Right.
Now, the pig that he's punching was wearing a Nexus uniform.
Right, okay.
And at the end of that, the Fiend appears. He's kind of shown all of the terrible things that John does, all his failures. And then he gets him with a mandible claw and a Sister Abigail and pins him 1, 2, 3. Now, what I thought was really cool about that, in keeping with the horror theme, the mandible claw was the way that he pinned him, but it looked like a Hollywood murder scene. It looked like the Fiend was a killer killing John Cena off. And it played a clip of a promo John Cena cut a few weeks ago that said, "I'm doing this match to get rid of the most overhyped, overvalued, overappreciated superstar in the WWE." And when it said that, it clicked and John Cena disappeared.
Right, yes.
And that was it. And it did the classic line of the Fiend, "Let me in." Yeah. And it was meant to be the big push of the Fiend. Now, unfortunately, I think he died not long after that match. But I chose that match, Dan, because it's mad. And people... So Vince McMahon loved it. John Cena describes it as one of his favourite matches he's ever had, because they basically went to the warehouse and went, "What can we do with this?" And they wrote all of it themselves, the two of them.
Okay.
People hated this when it came out. Like, they really hated it. You might have seen in the top corner, there was a hashtag Firefly Fun House Match. It was trending over over WrestleMania 36 hashtags, because people really, really hated it. They thought it was stupid. But I think more it's got on and the more reflection and the more analysis that people have put into it, people see how clever that is. And the other pre-recorded matches that we've had, I can only think of two off the top of my head. And that's AJ Styles versus The Undertaker. And Matt Hardy did one with someone that I can't remember. But they were both wrestling matches. So we've never had something like this before or since that is basically, like you said, a 15-minute promo in the middle of the biggest pay-per-view of the year in the penultimate spot. So like the headline act. And I just thought it was really interesting. I knew you hadn't watched it. The Fiend, I think, is a really interesting character because he's a villain, and villains are really fun and have really interesting motives. and I really wanted to be there when you watched it. And I was really glad watching your reaction, because there was a lot of laughing, there was a lot of shaking of the head, there was a lot of confused faces, but
there was a lot of silence when I was just taking it in. I mean, it's interesting what you say. I can see, so I enjoyed it. I can see why people didn't, because it is very, very different, very out there. I think it worked because it was during COVID. So I think the first thing I said to you is odd seeing no crowd in that arena as well. Yeah. And so I think that lends to it. But I can imagine, I mean, I don't know what the scenery was, the wrestling scene was at the time it happened, but I've said we've lost that kind of theatrical element to the wrestling. So there's that. Do you think, as maybe some casual ones, do you think maybe some of it was that they couldn't necessarily get the references?
Potentially. I think
because when you've explained it, the way you've explained it, it's actually a very clever piece of television. But yeah, was it appreciated because people didn't get it?
The way that I think WWE's viewers peak are at two places, and that's the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. I think you get a lot of people who will not watch it any other time watching these pay-per-views live as well. I think that you're right. I think it did take a bit of reflection to see how good this was. But I think people were maybe expecting a wrestling match, and that's not what you got here. Now, the Fiend had other surreal matches that he did in person. There's another WrestleMania appearance where he fights Randy Orton, and it's not very good at all, because the way that he exposes his fears is things like they project giant cockroaches onto the mat and Randy Orton runs away scared from them. But as someone on telly, you can see that it's obviously CGI, and someone in the arena would go, well, why is he looking like he's really scared for absolutely nothing? I think it really lent itself to what Bray Wyatt was interested in and what John Cena wanted to do, which was something different to what he'd been doing before. And Bray Wyatt wanted to do something that was creative and horror themed, because that's what he really enjoyed. And they just kind of let them have the reins with it, and it ended up with something that I think is probably my favourite wrestling match of all time. And wrestling matches in big quotes there.
Yeah, it is. No, it is really good why they did it, because you've got that real childlike program, that like a primary school program, bright colours and over the top theatrics, to the kind of the horror movie tropes, like the white noise sound, almost like the cutting with the film images. It's very well done. I mean, fair play to the two of them for doing it. I mean, especially someone like John Cena for wanting to do that. It felt to me also, watching it, like in the wrestling games, modern ones, like a showcase mode,
Yeah.
So
definitely.
I felt that was very relatable. But also, watching that, and as we said, it's such a shame that he passed. But for me, because I'd only known Bray Wyatt as Bray Wyatt, how different he looked.
Yeah.
And that just shows how good he was at the characters.
When he was like clean.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but it's also how good he was at that character, because I've only seen him a few times, but he really seemed to live that Bray Wyatt character.
But I think Bray Wyatt was what was good about old WWE. Like when they did the entrance, people used to put their phones on and they used to call it the Fireflies. He used to call his followers the Fireflies, and their music would come on and the whole arena would look amazing. And you saw the clips in that where he was saying, like, you said, John Cena, that you would listen to the people. Why didn't you listen to them on that day? And he used to get the crowd singing, he's got the whole world in his hands.
Yes.
And it's all these like creepy, culty, like middle America, I don't want to say Deliverance vibes, because that's a different thing entirely. But it's that kind of fear of, I don't know how you say rednecks PC now, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's that kind of fear, and it brought something really genuinely creepy, eerie, and scary to it. And I think when what the problem is there is, I think people see it as a gimmick. And gimmicks don't last in WWE unless they're like really good gimmicks. So I don't know that we'll ever see someone as good at that again as Bray Wyatt. But I said to you during the recording there, if ever you want something fun for like half an hour, just search the Firefly Fun House clips, because there's compilations of them all on YouTube, and they are brilliant.
No, I will do. And I think, and again, thank you for showing this to me. I mean, what I do wonder is, had I been a viewer at the time watching it, what the reaction would have been as well. Because like I said, fair play to the two of them, fair play for WWE for doing it. I think also the issue is we subsequently, I don't think, have seen anything like that again, have we? And, go back to whatever we were saying 40 minutes ago. This is what I miss. I'm not necessarily saying it's got to be a 20-minute segment like that. And to, like you said, to put it in the biggest pay-per-view of the year. And how weirdly it just ended, and they kind of just moved on to the next match. Then it seemed like
the next match was Drew McIntyre versus Brock Lesnar. So it's right back to the two giant slabs of meat smacking each other about. But you saw like the commentator at the end of it. We both thought it was really funny when he popped in and he just stood there, lost for words, and he was like, I don't know.
Kind of how I was for the first 5 minutes as well. I think, yeah. No, that's incredible. I think, like I said, maybe it's a bit of nostalgia. I don't know, but like I said, I think I'm missing the storytelling element. I mean, could you imagine some of the modern ones now doing something like that? I can't. Maybe, like I said, maybe Kevin Owens, because they were trying to do something with him and Sami Zayn, doing something a bit more, weren't they? Like him going to the house, spying on him. Maybe there, but I think more of this. I want this. This is what I want.
But you don't want it all to be this. You want it interspersed with the kind of more serious stuff.
Yeah. I know. Oh, that was interesting. Thank you for that.
You're very welcome. I think other people should suggest to you their favourite matches and the build-up to it and why they sticks to them so much. And you should make an entire series of this, Dan.
Well, I do want to do, as I said, grappling views.
Grappling views, okay.
I think that's the name, grappling views. Yeah, so if you're listening to this, do sort of contact myself and Joey over social media. Let us know what you thought of the Firefly Fun House, right?
That's right, yeah.
And what your favourite ones are. So, Joey, as always, thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure as always, Dan.
It's not a long way anyway, because you're back next week. Before you go, do you just want to plug you and your friends again? Yeah,
just search Gaming Club Pod in any good podcast provider. We're on YouTube now as well, which has been a long time coming. But Spotify, Good Pods, Apple Podcasts, all the places that you get your podcasts, we are there. You can also find us on Twitch every Thursday playing different games. And that's, once again, at Game Club Pod. But listen to Talking Smack, because they also come out on a Wednesday with two blokes, and I listen to them before I listen to us.
And Josh is lovely.
Yeah,
so go subscribe to Game Club Pod, go subscribe to Talking Smack, go subscribe to Gaming Views. Oh, and also before you go, I need to, because I always keep forgetting, thank you as well for your thumbnails you do for me as well, because you'll see outside of the Mind Wipe and Dinner Party episodes, pretty much all the thumbnails you're going to have seen in the last few months anyway will have been all Joey. So thank you again for that.
I've got more photos of you on my computer than I have anyone else, Dan. So it's once again my pleasure.
That's not worrying, is it? I can't wait to see what you do for this one. So stay tuned for that. So. All right, look, thank you very much. We'll see you next week for another episode of Casting Views.
1, 2, 3, 4. If I want your opinion, I will give it to you. Come on, check what we've got, 'cause you need it. Don't make us get a spark and more speed.